There were balloons. Pink ones, silver ones, ribbons tied around wine glasses and fairy lights strung above the ivy-covered fence. A man was proposing to his girlfriend 2 tables down. Someone in a yellow dress screamed yes as cameras flashed. That's the moment my wife leaned in close to me, her breath warm with Prosecco, and whispered something I'll never forget. "Stay or go. Your choice." She said it like she was offering me dessert. Not like she was ending a marriage. I didn't answer. Not because I was speechless. I just stopped existing for a second. My chest didn't move. The air felt thicker. I thought maybe I misheard her. But no. She said it again. Louder this time. For everyone to hear. "Seriously, Curtis, stay or go. But if you stay, stop sulking." People turned. One of her friends stifled a laugh. Someone dropped a fork. The worst part? It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a dramatic argument or a heated outburst. No. It was casual. Like I was a dog she was tired of dragging along to brunches. Like I was an accessory that no longer matched her dress. And I realized then, under those lights, between the clinking glasses and scattered laughter, that she'd already made her choice long before she gave me mine. You'd probably expect me to yell. Or at least say something back. But I didn't. I stood up slowly, politely, like I was excusing myself from a dull meeting. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. I nodded at her. I walked through the gate, down the patio steps, across the gravel, and out onto the street. That was 6 hours ago. I've been driving ever since. No music. No GPS. Just road and silence. My phone's been buzzing in the passenger seat, but I haven't looked at it. I'm afraid if I do, I'll see a message that says, "Bring the car back." Or worse, nothing at all. You know what's funny? 2 hours before that moment, I had gone out of my way to pick up the gift she forgot at home. It was for her boss. A limited edition scotch I had to drive across town to find. I wrapped it myself. I even wrote the card because she said her handwriting was too messy. I was still trying. Even though she hadn't held my hand in weeks. Even though she never laughed at my jokes anymore. Even though last Tuesday she called me Charlie under her breath, and that's her coworker's name, not mine. I brushed it off. Like always. Now I'm somewhere outside of town. A gas station to my left. An empty road ahead. And I keep replaying her words like a broken voicemail. Stay or go. You know what's worse than being told to leave? Being told you're allowed to stay on the condition that you stop being yourself. That's the part that breaks me. So I'm writing this in a diner booth next to a half-eaten grilled cheese and a coffee I don't remember ordering. The waitress asked if I wanted whipped cream on the pie. I said yes. Because right now I'm clinging to anything that still feels like a choice. Tomorrow I'll go home. Or maybe I won't. But tonight I chose something. I chose silence. I chose to walk away. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even check into a motel. I just kept driving, miles turning into hours, hours turning into some version of quiet that felt less like peace and more like being erased. The kind of silence where even your own thoughts stop calling your name. Around 3 a.m., I pulled over at a rest stop near a lake I didn't recognize, parked beneath a flickering light, and curled up in the driver's seat with a hoodie wrapped around my head like a scared kid. I thought maybe she'd text. Maybe something like, "Where are you?" or even, "I'm sorry, that was too far." But no. My phone lit up exactly 3 times, a promotional email, a work notification, and a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. That was it. No lane. By the time the sun crept over the tree line, my back was stiff, my eyes were dry, and I felt like I had aged 10 years in a single night. Still, like some pathetic retriever, I drove home. Not because I was ready. Not because I forgave her. But because I wanted to see if she even noticed I was gone. I pulled into our driveway like a ghost. Her car was there, parked straight, not a scratch on it. The porch light was still on. I stepped inside, expecting silence. Instead, I was hit with music, upbeat, poppy, the kind of playlist she used to play when she got ready for a night out. Except this time it was 9:15 in the morning and she was sitting cross-legged on the floor in our living room surrounded by open boxes. She didn't look up when I came in. She just said, "Oh, you're back." Not, "Where were you?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not even a glance in my direction. She was unwrapping candles. Literal candles. Bubble-wrapped, branded candles she must have ordered in one of her 2 a.m. shopping sprees. She was humming along to the music. I felt like I'd stepped into a stranger's home. I stood there waiting for her to say something more. Maybe explain. Maybe offer a twisted version of last night's events that would make sense in the light of day. But nothing came. Just the sound of tape ripping and the clink of glass hitting the table. So I asked quietly, "Why'd you do that?" Now she looked at me. Finally. Her head tilted like she didn't understand the question. Do what? The party. What you said to me in front of everyone. That wasn't just a joke, Lane. She blinked once. Twice. Then said I was being honest. That's when I realized we weren't on the same page anymore. We weren't even in the same book. She wasn't trying to fix this. She had already moved on from me, from us. And for her, that moment at the party wasn't a mistake. It was a message. A clear one. I didn't mean to humiliate you, she added almost lazily. But Curtis, you don't fit anymore. Everything's changed. I've changed. You're still the guy who color codes our grocery list. That stung more than I thought it would. As if being thoughtful had become a flaw. As if caring made me weak. You gave me a choice, I said. In front of everyone. You really meant it, didn't you? She didn't answer. Just turned back to her candles. That was her answer. I walked upstairs. The bed was made. My side still smelled faintly like the eucalyptus spray I used every night. My toothbrush was gone. Not misplaced, gone. The drawer where I kept it was wiped clean. I checked the closet. Half my clothes were folded and stacked in a suitcase I hadn't packed. That's when I found the envelope. Tucked into my sock drawer like it was a love letter. Inside were 2 documents, a blank separation agreement with her signature already on it, and a printed email to her realtor asking to start preparing a listing for the condo. I hadn't even left for 24 hours. She had everything ready. I sat on the edge of the bed holding that paper like it was some ancient scroll revealing the fate I didn't know had already been decided. And I kept asking myself, how long has she been planning this? How many mornings had she sipped her coffee across from me at the kitchen table, smiling while secretly checking boxes off her escape plan? I didn't cry. I wish I had. Maybe that would have made me feel something real. Instead, I felt hollow. Like a cheap rental property someone had already moved out of emotionally. I looked at the framed photo on the nightstand, our 3rd anniversary trip to Asheville. We were holding hands on a hiking trail, covered in mud, laughing. She used to say it was her favorite photo. I stared at it, trying to find that woman again. But I couldn't. And maybe she couldn't either. So I walked back downstairs. She was still in the same spot. Still unwrapping candles. Still humming like nothing had cracked in the foundation. I'll be out by tomorrow, I said. She didn't ask where I'd go. I didn't pack everything. Just the basics. Some clothes, my laptop, the files for work, and the weird little wooden box my grandfather gave me before he passed. It's not worth anything, it's chipped and smells like old cigars, but for some reason I couldn't leave it behind. I left the rest. The coffee grinder she loved, the mugs we picked out together, the little Polaroid printer she used to leave cute notes for me with. All of it stayed. It felt like those things belonged to the version of us that had already died. I didn't tell her I was going. I didn't even say goodbye. I just left the house key on the counter next to a half-eaten banana she hadn't touched all morning, slipped out the door, and drove straight to my brother's place. Elliot's the opposite of me, loud, sarcastic, impossible to ignore. He greeted me in sweatpants and a hoodie, holding a toaster pastry like it was a gourmet breakfast. Dude, he said, you look like you fell off a highway sign. I might have, I replied, and that was it. He didn't ask for details, just let me in, offered me his guest room, and told me the Wi-Fi password like this wasn't the emotional collapse of a marriage, but a casual weekend visit. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because the bed was uncomfortable, but because something was gnawing at the edge of my mind like an itch I couldn't reach. It wasn't just what she said at the party. It wasn't the silence. It was how prepared she had been. The printed realtor email. The signed separation papers. The fact that my things had already been moved. You don't do that overnight. You don't accidentally draft legal documents and call real estate agents the moment someone walks out. Which means she was planning this. And not just planning it, expecting me to fail. To leave. To give up. I couldn't stop thinking, was this her test? Did she want me to prove I'd stay no matter how bad it got, just so she could say I didn't? Or did she just not care either way anymore? I opened my laptop and scrolled through her social accounts. Most were locked down, but her professional page was still public. That's when I saw it, something that hadn't registered before. A post from 2 months ago, her and a guy named Brent standing outside a rooftop lounge downtown. The caption was generic, great night with the best team. But her smile wasn't. It wasn't her normal camera smile. It was the kind she used to give me when I surprised her with movie tickets or brought her takeout in bed. I clicked his profile. Private. But his profile picture said enough. He had his arm around her. Not in a team-friendly way. In a way that made my stomach drop. I scrolled through my own messages. Emails. Bank transactions. And slowly, I began noticing a pattern, little things that didn't make sense at the time. Charges at restaurants I'd never heard of. An expensive bottle of cologne ordered from my Amazon account that I never received. A hotel stay listed under our joint card from last month. During the same weekend she said she was at a conference in Chicago. I wanted to be wrong. I really did. But the pieces were coming together, and the picture they formed wasn't of a wife who drifted apart. It was of a woman who had already moved on and just hadn't told me. The next morning I asked Elliot if he'd heard of Brent. He paused, scratching his beard. Isn't that the guy with the BMW who came to the New Year's party? Tall. Wears cologne like it's his only personality trait. That was the party I missed. I had the flu. Lane went alone. Why? Elliot asked. No reason, I said, lying through my teeth. But now I knew. That night I went back to the house. Not to see her. Not to beg. I didn't want to speak to her at all. I just needed one thing: answers. The spare key still worked. I stepped in quietly. The house was empty. Dimly lit. It smelled like incense and new laundry. In the kitchen trash I found what I needed: a receipt. A crumpled valet stub with Brent's name on it and the date from last week. The night before the party. I don't know what I expected. A confession? A moment where she realized I'd figured it all out and crumbled with guilt? Instead, I got proof. Cold. Quiet. Simple. She didn't just drift. She jumped. And while I was still standing on the dock waving at what I thought was our future, she was already sailing off with someone else, someone who probably didn't know she used to cry during toothpaste commercials or that she left her shoes all over the house. I didn't confront her that night. I left the receipt on her desk with a note that said simply, I'm not the fool you thought I was. I just loved you too much to see the truth. And I walked back out. The next time she saw me, it wouldn't be at a party. It would be somewhere she couldn't laugh me off. Because I was done being quiet. I didn't hear from her for 3 full days after leaving that note. Not a single call. No text. Nothing. At first, I thought maybe she was processing it, maybe caught in her own guilt, spiraling in regret. But I think that was just the desperate part of me, the piece that still wanted to believe Lane was the person I married. The version of her that used to hide handwritten sticky notes in my lunchbox, even during our worst weeks. The woman who once stayed up with me all night when I missed my mom's final call. But the Lane that existed now? She wasn't spiraling. She was spinning. I found out from Elliot again that she had posted photos on her social profile from a dinner event. Big charity thing, black tie, white orchids on every table. There she was in a silver gown I had never seen before, standing next to Brent. The same Brent from the rooftop photo. His arm was around her again, but this time there was no caption to hide behind. This time her hand was resting on his chest, fingers curled into his lapel like they belonged there. No shame. No hesitation. Just her. I felt humiliated in a way I didn't have words for. And not because she moved on, that's painful, yeah, but people fall out of love all the time. What cut deep was how public it all was. How deliberately unbothered she looked. Like none of it, our years, our home, our Sunday rituals, had any weight. It all came to a head when I got an invitation. Not from her. From a mutual friend, sort of. Jenna, someone from her firm who had always liked me more than Lane probably knew. She texted out of the blue, you should know Lane's hosting a showcase at the Lenox Hotel rooftop this weekend. It's not just business. Brent will be there. A lot of people will. I thought maybe you'd want to show up. Or at least, see it for yourself. I stared at that message for an hour before replying with just 2 words, I'll come. Elliot tried to talk me out of it. Said it would make me look desperate. Said it wasn't worth it. But I wasn't going to beg or cause a scene. I didn't want to burn her life down. I just wanted her to see that I wasn't hiding anymore. That I saw her. Clearly. And that the man she tried to erase was still standing, shaking, maybe, but standing. The Lenox rooftop was glowing by the time I arrived. Rows of tiny lights strung over linen-covered tables, servers weaving through clusters of guests with trays of champagne. I wasn't dressed for it. I wore the same jacket I had the night I left, but I didn't care. I walked through the crowd like I belonged there, nodding at strangers, ignoring the whispers that followed me. I spotted her near the edge of the terrace. Her back was to me. Brent was standing beside her, talking to a group of men in tailored suits. She laughed at something, tossed her hair over her shoulder, and sipped from a glass that sparkled like a prop from a rom-com. I didn't interrupt. I waited. I let her notice me. When she finally did, her smile faltered for half a second. That was all I needed. Curtis, she said, setting her glass down. Her voice was syrupy, like I was a guest she hadn't expected but couldn't throw out in front of company. Didn't think this was your kind of crowd. I smiled gently. Didn't know honesty was yours? Brent raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? Lane glanced at him, then at me like she wasn't sure how to play it. Of course. We were just catching up. Actually, I said, still calm, we were just finishing something. And I pulled out a small white envelope from my jacket. Inside was a photo, the one from the hotel receipt, time-stamped. And next to it I had printed out the realtor email she accidentally left behind. I handed it to her wordlessly. She took it, unfolding it slowly, her face tightening with every second. I just wanted you to see that I figured it out. That I'm not the clueless background character in your little performance. I was never going to make a scene. You already did that for me. There was a long silence. Brent cleared his throat. Lane? What's this about? She didn't answer him. Her eyes were locked on me. And for the first time I saw something unfamiliar flash across her face, not guilt. Not anger. Fear. She thought I would stay quiet forever. I won't embarrass you, I said. I'm leaving. For good. But I thought you deserved to know that you didn't destroy me. You just freed me. And then I turned. I walked away as the chatter around us dipped into murmurs. She didn't follow. Brent didn't stop me. No one applauded. No dramatic music swelled in the background. But it was enough. I didn't leave broken. I left chosen. For the first time in a long time, I chose myself. The drive back from the Lennox rooftop was supposed to feel like a finish line. I thought walking away in silence on my terms would be the emotional closure I needed. I imagined sitting in Elliot's living room afterward with a cheap beer, maybe even laughing bitterly at the whole thing like it was someone else's story. But closure's not clean. It's not satisfying. It doesn't click like a door shutting behind you. It creeps. It lingers. It scratches the walls of your chest while you try to convince yourself you're healed. When I got back to Elliot's, the lights were off, but the TV was still glowing. He'd fallen asleep watching baseball again. I didn't wake him. I went straight into the guest room, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the bed with my jacket still on. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was adrenaline. But it wasn't. It was grief, complicated, cruel, quiet grief. The kind that doesn't come with a funeral. The kind where the person who broke your heart gets to keep smiling in public while you're still piecing yourself back together in private. I didn't sleep that night. Around 4:30 in the morning, I checked my phone out of habit, expecting nothing. But there it was. A message from her. One line. You didn't have to humiliate me. That was it. I stared at the screen for so long the battery died in my hand. Humiliate her? That's what she took from that moment. Not betrayal. Not cowardice. Not the silence she buried me in for months while she curated a new life behind my back. No. She was embarrassed. I didn't reply. I just stared at the blank screen, jaw tight, wondering if she'd ever really seen me. Or if I had just been a prop in her life, a placeholder until someone shinier came along. I kept hearing that awful laugh from the rooftop. The way people looked at me like I was a stray dog she'd fed out of guilt. All those times I'd swallowed my own hurt just to keep the peace. And now I was the one accused of cruelty. Because I showed up. Later that morning, Elliot knocked on my door, holding 2 cups of gas station coffee like it was some sacred offering. You look like you aged 12 years, he said, sitting next to me without waiting for an invite. Want to talk? I didn't want to, but I needed to. I think I spent the last year pretending I didn't see it, I admitted. The distance. The lies. The way she flinched when I touched her shoulder. I thought if I was just patient enough, kind enough, she'd come back. Did she say anything? He asked. I handed him the phone. He snorted. She's mad you embarrassed her? She's got the emotional depth of a spoon. I laughed. Sort of. Felt weird. Like my body had forgotten how to make that sound. But it helped. For a minute, it helped. Then Elliot leaned forward and said something I didn't expect. What were you doing in that marriage, Curtis? Like, what were you really doing? It stunned me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because I didn't know. I had spent so long trying to make her comfortable that I'd forgotten to ask if I was. I rearranged my life around her moods, her needs, her schedule. I stopped listening to the music I liked because she said it gave her headaches. I stopped buying certain foods because she called them low tier. I even stopped wearing a cologne she once loved because she said it smelled like a middle-aged accountant's bad decisions. And I let it all happen, smiling through it like a good little partner. Like a man proud to be tolerated. That afternoon, something inside me shifted. I found myself opening boxes I hadn't touched in years. Things I had hidden away in storage. Old sketchbooks from college, a dusty acoustic guitar, notebooks filled with short stories I never finished. I used to dream of being a writer once. I used to have hobbies, opinions, a voice. And somewhere between her silence and my submission, I let it all go. I didn't respond to her text that day, or the next. But on the third morning I sent one thing, no explanation, no attack, no apology. Just this: I see everything now. No follow-up. No period. Nothing. I don't know what it meant to her, but to me it meant I was done. Done pretending this was a miscommunication. Done blaming myself for her distance. Done asking for a place in a story she'd already rewritten without me. 3 days after I sent Lane that text, "I see everything now," I started sleeping again. Not great, but enough to stop hearing her voice in my dreams. I hadn't planned to say anything more to her. I wasn't waiting for a reply. In fact, I think I secretly hoped she wouldn't respond. Because if she didn't, then maybe she had finally let go too, and we could just drift apart like people who once meant everything but now barely meant anything at all. But that peace didn't last long. It started with a knock. Not a loud one. Just 2 soft taps on Elliot's front door, like someone unsure if they had the right address. I was in the kitchen with a mug of tea, wearing socks that didn't match, when I peeked out the window and saw her. Lane. She wasn't dressed like herself. No heels. No blazer. No perfectly sculpted waves or cold perfume that followed her like a storm cloud. She wore jeans and a hoodie. Her hair was pulled into a lazy bun. For a second, I thought maybe she was sick. Or maybe human. I opened the door and we just stood there. Me gripping the handle like a shield. Her holding something in her hand I couldn't quite see. She looked different. Not fragile, but stripped down. She wasn't performing this time. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I just need you to read something." She handed me a folded piece of paper. Not typed. Not printed. Written in blue pen, slanted and rushed. My name was scribbled across the front. I didn't say anything, just nodded and stepped aside. "No," she said. "I won't come in. Just, when you read it, you'll understand." She walked back to her car without another word. No tears. No dramatic music. She didn't look back. I waited an hour before opening the letter. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what she wrote. Maybe I was afraid it wouldn't say anything at all. But when I finally unfolded the paper, the first line punched the air out of me. It was never supposed to be Brent. The letter went on like that, jagged thoughts, scribbled confessions. Apparently, Brent wasn't the first. He wasn't even the main one. There was another man. One I didn't know. Client. Someone who came and went like a shadow through her job. "It started last summer," she said, "when we were out of sync. When I was emotionally unavailable." She blamed my quiet, my routine, my need to keep things predictable. "You didn't do anything wrong," she wrote. But it felt like we were in a waiting room, and I was suffocating in the silence. I didn't want to cheat. I wanted to feel like someone was listening to me again. "You were always good to me, but I needed more than good. I needed to feel like I mattered again." That line broke me in half, because I had spent years trying to make her feel exactly that. Every dinner I cooked, every grocery list I wrote with her favorite snacks, every Friday night I canceled plans to stay in with her and just be present. I thought that was me showing her that she mattered. I thought my silence was steadiness, that my calm was love. But in her eyes, it was absence. She ended the letter with something that made my skin crawl. "I kept waiting for you to notice, to fight, but you didn't. And when you walked away, you made it clear that I had become invisible to you too." Invisible? I was the one cooking for a ghost, waiting on a smile that never came. Leaving work early just to sit across from a woman who couldn't bother to ask how my day went. She wasn't invisible to me. I was invisible to her. Still, I couldn't stop reading the letter over and over again. Not because I forgave her. Not because I was considering going back. But because part of me still wanted to understand how we got so far off course without either of us screaming for help. I thought that was the end of it. But 2 nights later, I got another message. Not from Lane. From Brent. It came through a social app one rarely used. I almost deleted the notification, thinking it was spam, until I saw his name. The message was short. Only 4 lines. "Did she tell you the whole story? I think you should know the truth. She's playing both of us. And if you want proof, I have it." I stared at the screen like it was a detonator. I didn't respond. Not right away. My heart was racing again. My stomach turned cold. I thought about deleting the message, pretending I never saw it. But something inside me, some broken, bruised part of my pride, needed to know. Was there more? Had she lied even in her letter? Was I still the only one not in on the joke? I typed slowly, reluctantly. What kind of proof? What he sent next would wreck everything I thought I'd finally buried. Brent's message sat there for a while, those last words glowing on my screen like some kind of warning. I have proof. And for a few minutes I actually debated whether I wanted to see it. I'd already been gutted, publicly humiliated, emotionally unspooled. What more damage could possibly be done? But that's the thing with betrayal. It's not just the first crack that breaks you. It's the echo of it. The realization that the lies went deeper than you thought, longer than you guessed, and darker than you feared. And some part of me, the sick part that hadn't let go, needed to know just how far it all went. So I typed 2 words back, show me. What he sent wasn't a message. It was a file. A video. My hands went cold before I even clicked it. My fingers hovered over the screen like I was about to launch a bomb I couldn't disarm once it started. And when I finally tapped it, everything I had tried so hard to hold together began to unravel again. It was a screen recording. A video file of a conversation, no, a FaceTime call. Lane was sitting on our couch, the same one I had picked out, the one with the tear in the corner from when we moved. She was holding a glass of wine, laughing. It wasn't nervous laughter. It wasn't forced. It was that loose, flirtatious laugh, the one she used to reserve for me before things went numb. She looked into the camera and said, "He still thinks I'm confused. It's almost sad. He's like a dog that keeps coming back even after you stop feeding it." And then she paused. Took another sip. "He'll be gone soon enough. I've already got the realtor lined up. And once the paperwork's in place, he'll fold like he always does. He's comfortable in the background. He doesn't even know what it means to fight." The voice on the other end was a man, but not Brent. A different one. Older maybe. Deeper voice. I couldn't see his face. Just a shadow in the corner of the frame. "He won't fight you on alimony?" the man asked. She laughed again. "He's too proud to beg for scraps. He'll walk away just like I knew he would." My mouth went dry. I didn't even realize I was shaking until my elbow bumped the desk and nearly knocked my drink over. It wasn't just the cheating. It wasn't just the lying. It was the planning. The calculating. The way she talked about me like I was a character in a game she was already winning. Brent messaged again before I could even process what I'd watched. "That call was from 2 weeks before she humiliated you at the party. I found it on her iPad. She forgot to unlink it from our cloud. I guess she's not as tech-savvy as she thinks." I didn't know what to say. I didn't thank him. I didn't scream. I just stared at the screen until the words blurred. And then another message from Brent. "I broke it off. Last week." She flipped. "Tried to make me think you were the monster." I didn't want to believe it, but here we are. I closed my phone and just sat there in Elliot's guest room, blinds half closed, the world outside still spinning like none of this mattered. She knew I loved her. She knew I was loyal. She knew I wouldn't scream or expose her. She counted on that. She designed her exit around it. And then she weaponized my silence like it was stupidity. Like I didn't notice her drifting. Like I didn't hear the tone change in her voice. Like I didn't feel the way she started treating me like luggage she couldn't figure out how to donate. I thought about the letter she left. How she said she needed to feel seen. That she wanted me to notice. But she didn't want to be seen. She wanted to get away with it. And that letter wasn't closure, it was theater. A backup plan in case the fallout made her look too cold. If I exposed her, she could point to the note and say, "See, I was honest. I tried. I wanted to scream, but the sound never came. I just leaned back into the mattress, pressed my palms into my eyes until stars exploded behind my eyelids, and let the silence eat me alive." Later that night, I wrote her one final message. "You lied in your letter, and you lied to everyone else. I hope he was worth it. I hope it was all worth it." I didn't expect a reply, and for a while nothing came. But at 2:07 a.m., she broke her silence. "You weren't supposed to find out like this. No apology. No remorse. No, I'm sorry I destroyed you while you were busy trying to love me. Just that. Like it was an inconvenience. Like the truth being revealed was the real crime." I stared at her words and felt something new. Something I hadn't felt in months. Not sadness. Not heartbreak. Disgust. And in that moment I realized I wasn't trying to get her back anymore. I wasn't trying to understand her. I was finally done. The morning after her final message, I woke up before the sun. No alarms, no jolting panic, no twisted dreams dragging me out of sleep. Just quiet. Real quiet. Not the kind that feels like loneliness, but the kind that finally feels like peace. Lane hadn't messaged again. I didn't expect her to. There was nothing left to say. The truth had been dragged into the light, and like anything rotten, it couldn't survive there. I reread the message one more time. You weren't supposed to find out like this, and I laughed. Not bitterly, not sarcastically. Just laughed. Because even at the very end, she was more worried about her secrets slipping than about the person she hurt. But the strangest part? I wasn't angry anymore. I was done bleeding for someone who didn't care if I ever stopped. Around 8 a.m., I walked into Elliot's kitchen and found him flipping pancakes like a guy who hadn't watched his brother's life implode over the last 2 weeks. He looked up and said, "You're smiling. Should I be worried or impressed?" "Neither," I said. "Just free." It sounded weird coming out of my mouth, but it was true. For the first time in years, I felt like my life was mine again. Not shared. Not trimmed down to make someone else more comfortable. Not tolerated. Just mine. That day I took a walk. A long one. Past our old cafe. Past the bookstore she never liked. Through a park we always avoided because it was too ordinary. I sat on a bench with a cup of hot coffee and let the wind whip through my jacket. And for once, I didn't feel like a man abandoned. I felt like a man returned to himself. Later that week, I signed the separation documents. No lawyer. No fight. No bitterness. Just closure. Elliot offered to go with me, but I told him I needed to do it alone. When I walked out of the building, the air smelled different. Sharper. Cleaner. Like the future had been aired out and was finally ready to be lived in. I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I bought a sketch pad. Started drawing again. Badly, clumsily, but with real joy. I joined a weekend writing group at a library downtown. I even played my guitar at an open mic night, trembling fingers and all. My voice cracked. My hands sweat. But afterward, someone came up and said, "Man, that felt real. Real." I hadn't felt real in so long. Weeks passed. Then months. Lane's name stopped haunting my phone. Her voice faded from my mind. And one day, without even realizing it, I stopped checking her social pages altogether. I stopped wondering if she regretted it. I stopped replaying the rooftop party. I stopped hoping she'd come running back with an apology she never truly meant. Because I didn't need it anymore. The man who begged for scraps of affection, who stayed quiet so she'd feel bigger, who folded himself small enough to fit into her shrinking heart, that man was gone. Buried. And the man standing in his place? He still had cracks, sure. Still had fears. Still had bad days. But he was done apologizing for his softness. Done hiding behind silence. And one morning, an ordinary, beautiful, quiet morning, I stood in front of my mirror, looked myself in the eye, and said, "You didn't lose her. You found you." That was the day I came back to life.